Abortion Healing Provider meeting of the new year. We are so glad you're here. Thank you for coming today. We have a hungry group. I'm so excited to see all your faces. Thank you for making time today to be here with us. I know that the first month of the year is always busy, so it's so meaningful that you would spend your time with us today. Welcome, welcome. I'm letting everybody get on. Please feel free to keep your videos on if you'd like. You don't have to, but make sure that you stay muted until our question and answer session towards the end of our meeting today. It looks like everybody's getting situated. So I'm going to introduce myself and we'll get started today. As many of you know, my name is Lisa Rowe. I have the privilege of serving as the CEO for Support After Abortion. I am really excited about today's message because it's so important, especially as we're looking at the beginning of the year. We're assessing what went well last year. We're looking at our health goals and our vision boards, and I am going to speak to every single one of you. I know that everybody is coming to this meeting today with something that either they tried already to change and that it's already fallen off because you had that piece of cake last night, or you're really working on doing something different, keeping that boundary, taking hold of a new habit. And it just seems to be that this month always has that in store for our culture. So we felt like it would be really important to talk to you about what is it to serve from a full cup? What does it really mean to be a healthy helper today? And I have the awesome opportunity to do these conversations often because as a clinician, I train interns, and it's not uncommon for my interns to really struggle at times with our clients. And usually when they are struggling, it's not because they don't know what to do. It's because something about that interaction with that client triggered a part of them that has yet to be healed. And so I want to just draw our attention to what that might look like for us in our practices in abortion healing and serving others who may also struggle with this. I know at times I have that I just felt so tired and drained that I couldn't give another minute of myself to one more person, or I got really snippy with a client or really short with the client. I think the worst is when I had a client text me and go, "Are you okay today?" And it was a real eye-opening experience to go, what did she see that I didn't know about myself? And so hopefully today's meeting will carry some of these practical, really evaluating experiences for you as you journey forward in 2023. I'm going to use a presentation to help me kind of articulate most of what I'm sharing today, but then I'm going to ask you if you're open to be vulnerable to share with us if you can relate to this message, partly because when we can see ourselves in someone else, it is very validating. When you know that people on this call struggle with something that you struggle with, that imposter syndrome that we walk with, or that pride that we walk with, our ego, it starts to dismantle, and our vulnerability allows us to grow. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to start with this presentation like I shared. Okay, so I want to start with these conversations that some of us face as we're working with our clients. So if you'll look at the screen here, why do we serve? Why are some of us, why did you choose to take an hour out of your time today to get better at what you do, to be a part of a community that is yearning to grow and affect change in abortion healing? We all have our own reasons. We all have a why. And here's some of them that we hear throughout our journey. When I had an unplanned pregnancy, I felt so scared and alone. I want to protect other people from that experience. I believe God called me to do this. My daughter died from SIDS at a year old. When I was having a hard time, a nurse helped me, and I want to give back. I want to serve to feel better about my life. Maybe I didn't have anybody there for me, and I don't want that to be another person's story. Or when I was getting divorced and experienced X, this particular neighbor stepped in a place that I really needed, and I want to do that for somebody else. We all have those experiences. And so I want us to start with truly capturing that before we move on to the next slide. Maybe you have a little sticky note, the back of an envelope, whatever that is. When you think about why you serve, don't think about it for too long. I want you to think about, what is your reason? Why did you come to today's call? What is your reason for serving? Let's capture that. 3 seconds, write it down. Take a minute to really contemplate that. While you're doing that, I'm going to switch to the next slide. And we're going to talk about the difference between, oops, I'm sorry, what am I doing here? Here we go. So while you're writing, maybe you're still thinking. And if you're having to really stretch yourself about why you do what you do, I want you to really be open to why it's so hard for you to identify that. But for most of you, you've figured it out and you know why. And so on your screen now, you'll see a picture of a cup that's overflowing and a cup that's empty. And you've heard this analogy before. We want to pour from a full cup. We can't give from an empty cup. These are all things that you've heard before. But perhaps this message might sound a little different today. You know, as I think about the times in my life when my cup has been absolutely empty, it wasn't because I, wasn't feeling good. It wasn't because I didn't have money in my bank account. It wasn't for all the tangible things that our world would say. It was for all the invisible things that nobody else knew about unless I talked about them. It was that I had been silently stuffing the pain of a relationship that failed and didn't talk to anybody about it. Things that emptied my cup that were invisible might have been that I yelled at my daughter before she went to bed and I didn't want anybody to know about it. Or that I cheated a customer out of X, Y, and Z money to pay for something that I wanted. Again, invisible, nobody saw it. I had been cutting my wrists and nobody knew about it. And I wore long sleeves to work. I had been drinking wine every night for the last 30 days to try to numb the pain of this relationship that failed again. That's where in my life, I have realized the emptiness comes from. And we don't often understand in those moments that that is depleting our cup. We are in a robot mode where we are trying to survive the pain. And many of us, because we are serving from a place of brokenness, because we do want people to not experience the pains that we did, sometimes end up trying to do both, trying to heal ourselves through these really broken places and try to help other people. And it just doesn't work well. Because if we don't have nourishment in our heart, if we don't have nourishment in our cup, we can't give to those people. And so what did it look like as I started filling my cup? And don't think for 1 second I have this figured out. I am very tired today and I'm thinking about my week and it's like, oh yeah, I have not worked out one time this week. I haven't gotten up early enough to do my morning time and not feel rushed in the morning. Those things they take away from me. So as we think about the things that fill our cup, it might be just those things: physical exercise, mental health support. Maybe it's taking care of your space, keeping it organized. Maybe it's eating well for you. Maybe it's having a structured financial plan. Maybe it's giving to you in a way that serves you, where you wake up in the morning, you do these things and you feel full. You feel like there's something that's overflowing that you can give to somebody else. If we're really evaluating ourselves, how well are we taking care of ourselves? And if you're anything like me, I have seasons where I'm taking great care of myself. And then I have seasons where I think I've figured it all out. And then I stop taking care of myself. And so as we really look at, what did we do well in 2022 and how are we moving into 2023? I want you to really be mindful. Do you even know what fills your cup? And do you know what empties your cup? Because part of this journey is an understanding of, this is why I feel this way today. This is why I'm feeling tired. This is why I'm feeling like I can't give anymore. This is why I feel irritated at that coworker. But if we don't know why, because we're not naming it, we struggle to treat it, right? Same thing as a doctor would say, I need a diagnosis in order to prescribe the prescription. So this image is so important for you to evaluate, because what is your diagnosis right now? Are you living with a full cup? Are you doing all the things that you need to do to create the space to give? Or are there a lot of things in your life right now that are taking away? Maybe because you intentionally are allowing them, or maybe because life has a lot of bumps in the road right now and you're navigating them. So let's diagnose ourselves, so to speak, in this presentation so that we can move forward with the prescription, because sometimes it is easier than we make it seem, where, oh yeah, I need to make that vulnerable phone call to my therapist and tell her I fell off the wagon and I need some help. Or I need to make that phone call to that neighbor who I've been, avoiding for the last 3 months to try to mitigate this pressure that's between us and figure out the fence is, whatever it might be. I'm just, we don't understand the heaviness of the things we carry until we start to look at them like this. Okay. So what happens when we pour from an empty cup? Well, many of you will be like, duh, I know this answer, but some of us need to see them named so that we can truly identify them. Burnout or compassion fatigue is one of the largest things that comes with helping when you're not helping yourself. So often I tell my interns, you cannot sit with other people's junk until you sit with your own. And if you think about that and you really think about the heaviness of that, if we're sitting with other people's junk and we haven't dealt with ours, of course it's going to get heavy. Of course we're going to have limitations in what we can see and do. Of course it's going to feel daunting because you can't see the way out of your own stuff. You're going to struggle to sit with other people. Some of you might feel like, I keep seeing this client over and over and over again, and nothing's changing. I don't feel effective. Nothing seems to work. Maybe you feel like every day it's Groundhog Day. You get up in the morning and it's the same old, same old, same old. Perhaps you're tired. Perhaps there's something in your world that is drawing away the energy that you need to feel light, to feel like you're connected to your purpose. And truly, the most important thing I want you to hear is, if you are giving from an empty cup, you are ineffective. And not only that, but you can be very, very, very damaging to the clients you serve. And some of you might have seen this with your coworkers or with the volunteers that you work with. When we're ineffective, or when we ask questions that are inappropriate or hurtful or out of our own pain, we can do more damage working with our clients than we can if we are centered in ourselves, full and receiving the care that we need so that we can care for others. Okay, so when we're filling our cup, I gave you some examples already. Here's the categories I want you to think about as you've diagnosed yourself and you're providing the prescription. In what ways are you caring for each part of your being? And here they are. How are you caring for your mind? Do you have a place to write down your thoughts? Do you have a place to talk about the things you think about? Do you have a place to talk about your vision and the way that you are hearing and seeing the world? Your body. How are you taking care of your body? Do you constantly feel tired? Are you challenged by maybe a new diet that you're trying to help reduce your cholesterol? Are you taking walks? Are you caring for yourself in the ways that your body needs you to, so that you can be fully present with the clients that you're serving? How are you taking care of your heart, your soul? What are you doing to care for your feelings and the way that you experience the world through your heart? What are you doing to take care of those old wounds that have left holes in your heart? Are you trying to ignore them? Are you trying to work through them? Are you moving into the next layer of growth? How are you doing that? And then finally, how are you taking care of your spiritual needs? Are you part of a spiritual community? Do you believe that there's someone higher than you? Most of us on this call believe there is a God higher than us that cares deeply for us. But how are you investing in that relationship, that personal relationship? If we aren't filling our cup in these areas, how can we expect to help clients fill their cups like this? So as you think about these 4 areas, I want you to jot one idea down in each of these areas that you could be doing better at. Some of you are feeling compelled by this message and you're like, oh, this is exactly what I needed to hear today. Others are like, oh, I don't want to hear it, but I need to. So perhaps this is an opportunity for you to create a goal or a way of moving into tomorrow, the next day, next week, next month. Because the better you are, the more effective you're going to be, the more you're going to feel connected to the work that you're doing. Most importantly, the better you're going to feel about everything. Something that I think shocks a lot of people is that we often carry our bags into the rooms of those that we serve. So I love this picture, and it really is the reason I wanted to provide the presentation today, because I want this to sit with you. And I want you to picture the baggage that our clients bring to the conversations they have with us. You know, maybe it's that first phone call they made. They probably were thinking about making the phone call for 3 weeks, and they finally get the courage to pick up the phone and call us. And when they call us, they don't realize they're carrying everything, but they are carrying things from way long ago. And it's our voice on the other end. It's the things that we say on the other side of that call, in the other side of that waiting room, on the other side of that visit, that allow them to begin to maybe drop some of these bags at the door. And some of them will stay with them unknowingly. We know our clients are carrying them, but are we identifying that we are also carrying these things? So as I envision this, I see a client walking into our office, all of her invisible bags. She's waited 3 weeks to come. She finally has the courage to come in, and she's met with one of our staff members who's carrying the same amount of baggage as her. And maybe that person that meets her at the door knows how to put a smile on in the midst of her thing, because that's a defense mechanism she's developed. How does that client benefit from that staff member when they sit down in that quiet room? I can envision them both sitting down, you know, one on a couch, one on a chair, and they both invisibly let down those bags. Hey, how are you today? One says, I'm not so good. And the other one has to absorb those not so goods, but through the filter of all these bags that she brought into that room. Our goal as helpers is to find a way to work through our baggage so that we're bringing minimal bags into that room with the client. I don't think that we would ever not bring bags. We're humans too, but we don't want to be bringing all of our bags into that office. And you might say, Lisa, like, duh, that makes sense. I know I leave, you know, your personal life at home. That's the saying, that's the mantra that our culture has, right? But the reality is some of us don't even know that we're carrying these heavy things. Some of us don't even realize that that child abuse wound from 25 years ago, that abortion wound from 19 years ago, that divorce wound from 6 years ago, the mortgage company who's writing you to take your house from the 2 letters that you've received, your child who is abusing drugs, your own obsession or temptations. Those are all things that if we're not dealing with them are becoming bags in our life, or we're holding on to them. So I want you to evaluate yourself, almost envision yourself, train your teams. What are you bringing with you when you come into these conversations? Because if you're bringing the same amount of bags with your client as your client is, we've got a problem. And we only know the problem exists until we see it and we name it. So perhaps this is speaking to you today. Perhaps you know somebody that's struggling with this. Let's be a friend and offer a very direct, crucial, loving conversation to them to say, hey, how is this impacting you? And what do you need to do to take care of that? Because I guarantee you, when you choose to take that really courageous step to address those things, you're going to have more courage with those clients when you're sitting across from them and you say, hey, I've been where you are. When are you going to take this next step? What do you need now? You're going to have more boldness in that because you will have walked that journey a little bit ahead of them. So here's just some suggestions, if I haven't named them all yet, that we might see in terms of baggage with both our clients, our volunteers, those that we're working with, ourselves. And they all have different impacts on us. Job loss, foster care, sick parents, broken relationships. We've talked about abortion and divorce. Look at this one. And I loved that she put this on here for me, mold in our home. Somebody might think like, oh, that's easily addressed by a construction worker, but we don't know what that does to somebody. We don't know what kind of impact that might leave on somebody. Sex trafficking, addiction, substance abuse, domestic violence, codependency. We've talked a lot about that throughout our time with our abortion healing meetings. Different stressors, self-harm, sick children. These are all things that our lives have been touched by, right? And we all, based on our temperament and our previous experience, deal with these things differently. And so it's really important that we identify and we respond to these things differently depending on where we are in our life, what kinds of tools that we have, what's happening. You know, a sick child when you're 30 years old might not feel so heavy, but maybe you're on your sixth child and you're 47 years old and there's a lot of other stressors in your life. A sick child at 47 might feel really different than at 30. An abortion at 19 might feel maybe perhaps heavier for someone than at 35 or vice versa. So I think it's important that we don't say it just matters at this time in our life, but these things impact us over lifetimes, and depending on where we are in our life, it's important that we continue to evaluate. And I think I've made this point, but this picture does a great job. Our baggage distracts us from the things that we're called to do. I think of this one client that I worked with, and she was talking about sick children, ironically. She had found out when he turned 12 years old. So a little bit about her backstory. She had experienced abortion, had a living child later in life, was struggling in her marriage. And this child that she did have living, she ended up becoming the helicopter mom, which we see often with families who've experienced abortion. And her son turned 12 and it was post-COVID. And she's getting ready to send him back to school. And when she does, they find out that he has a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, and it's pretty significant. She's working with him. It's just before they're getting ready to go back to school. She has this regimen with him, and she's getting really overwhelmed with it. And she sends him back to school. And within a week, the school had it figured out. It was not nearly the difficulty level that she had thought it was. She couldn't believe that the school could get a handle on this when she was struggling most of the summer to figure it out. And we started talking, and she said, you know, Lisa, I didn't realize, but I wanted so badly for him to need me. So every time I would walk in that room, I would find everything wrong with him, everything wrong with this new disease that he has. I would look for every issue. I didn't want to find anything bad, but I just wanted to know I was doing everything good as a mom and that he needed me. And then here he goes to school and he doesn't need me, and the school doesn't need me, and they're not seeing all the things that I was seeing. What I hope you're hearing as I tell this story is that this was an innocent mom who wanted to do her very best. But every time she went into her son's room to help him, she was bringing that baggage from her abortion experience. She was bringing the baggage from her past. She was bringing all that regret and all that shame with her. And it was blinding her from what her son really needed. And she now can say she is so grateful that the school stepped in, because if they hadn't, she would have babied him through this experience. And who knows what kind of pain or consequences would have come for her son as a result. She said her son is not even fazed by this diagnosis, that he can do it himself. He can recognize the signs and symptoms of his low blood sugar. He knows exactly what to do. And she really believes that the school helped her negotiate that. But she would be the first one to tell you that at the beginning, her bags were too heavy, they were too distracting, and they blinded her from what her son really needed in that moment. Perhaps that story is relatable to you as you think about your clients or yourself. You know, there's things that you can't see right now because of the things that you're walking through. And maybe you can't see them, so to speak, but you can feel that there's something off, or you feel like you're beating your head against the wall. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to say, what else is there? What more could there be? If I feel like I'm hitting my head against the wall, I probably am, not literally. What else is going on? What bags might I be bringing into this? What other things are causing this distraction or blinding me from what I really need to be doing here? There's always something, always. And this is what we always encourage at Support After Abortion. It's what I encourage as a therapist. It is absolutely important, if we are going to help people, that we fill our cup and unload our own baggage. And if you are unwilling to touch that thing, that one thing from the past, or that one thing from, way long time ago, maybe today's the day to say, it's time. It's time to take this next step. Because it's super hard to meet somebody in their brokenness if we haven't dealt with those things. And we're going to be so much more effective when we choose to take that deep dive into our healing. I have not met one person that has taken that deep dive in their healing and hasn't been so grateful that they did, and says, I keep meeting people just like me, and I'm helping them, and I'm able to tell them my story, and I'm able to give back in ways I couldn't. I'm going to stop here. And like I said, I'm really hopeful that we can have a conversation about this. I'm really hopeful that maybe we can bring some faces to the table that could really bring our humanity as we look at 2023. I'm really looking for some vulnerability in this conversation. Maybe you're recently walking through this. Maybe it sparked something in you today, or maybe you've walked through this in different parts of your life. But I'd love for us to be able to share some of the experiences, maybe what we've learned as a result in today's meeting. And then I'll open it up for questions after we've had some time to share. So there's opportunity to discuss in the chat, which there's a lot of chat going on right now. But I also like to hear, on your screen, if you want to take yourself off mute, raise your hand. I'd love to hear from you.
So Lisa, one question we received is, I'm going to read this to you. My organization's previous management did not allow for self-care to be part of our environment. How do I help my team catch up while still getting all of our work done?
I want to answer these questions in a big way, but I'd like to stay on the heart connection for a moment and really bring people to the screen. So if you were somebody that was getting ready to share or were considering it, I'd love to hear from a few of you, as you might really want to talk about how you've maybe poured from an empty cup and what you learned about that process.
I'll share. So I'm not really pouring from an empty cup right now. One of the things that we do here is we have devotions, and we talk about certain specific topics. Like today, our topic was on love and working together with our coworkers and everything. And what's good about our clinic is that we are able to come to each other when we are overwhelmed with something, either individually or collectively. We're able to come together and just hash it out and talk it out. I end up sometimes being the person that leaves the door open because I'm the counselor here. And so I know I not only counsel, the women that come in here as far as the clients, but also some of our my coworkers as well. But we're a pretty close, tight-knit group. We call ourselves sisters, one, because we spend a lot of time together, and two, because I think it's important for us to watch over each other and be there for each other, so that when we feel those days of being overwhelmed, we have a safe space to be able to talk and everything. Wow. So.
Thank you so much. So there's one of the things that you might consider in your workplace, to offer an open environment like we're hearing, where there is a safety to bring these kinds of things, so that you can have a place, a community that is helping you. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Georgia, you can go next. Georgia Barker.
Oh, I'm figuring it out. Hi, thank you so much.
Yes.
One of the things I noticed, I volunteered as a patient care advocate at a pregnancy resource center here locally. Mm-hmm. And I also facilitated the post-abortion recovery class for the center. And I'm just now branching out on my own. And I remember one of the things that I noticed was the emptiness does lead to ineffectiveness, whether it's, we were prayed up every time before we started meeting with a client. But at the same time, even though you're prayed up, if whatever it is that you're pouring out, if it's not heartfelt, if it's not genuine, if you're just going through the motions, then you leave that room not feeling effective. You leave that room feeling as though you haven't impacted this woman who needed to be impacted in any way. So I found that it's really, really, and I'm glad, this is very interesting for me, and it's actually forcing me to put on paper what it is that I need to focus on and what it is that I need to intentionally work on to make sure that my cup is full, mm-hmm. so that I can be effective.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And what I heard you say is that you might have been effective in that room, but your own security could mm-hmm. steal that from you. So if you're not filling your cup, you don't walk with a lot of security, which makes you spend a lot of brain space on something that might not even be real.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. I think we all can hear the noise in our head at times and the inability to turn it off. Thank you for that. Kim, how about you? I don't know if you're frozen, Kim. While we're waiting to hear from Kim, Kathy, I saw your hand up, and then Nancy.
So I'm caring for an ailing parent, and that really spoke to me. And I find it to be so ironic, caring for the one that cared for me. And then me being able to care for others in that process. So I really appreciate the opportunity to recognize what my baggage is right now, and take that time that I need to process my baggage, and that it actually will make me a much more effective therapist and helper in the world. But it is very hard. And compartmentalizing those thoughts and all of the duties that go with that has been difficult, and I'm working through it, but that's a hard piece of baggage to let go of. I think it's more like putting on a shelf, that I get back to. So I appreciate you showing me and helping me recognize where my role is as a therapist for other people in addressing my own baggage.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy, for your vulnerability. I think many people on this call can relate to that. And perhaps they've been trying to do the very same thing, put it on a shelf, and it just doesn't work like that. I appreciate that. Nancy, are you available?
Yes, I couldn't figure out how to do the raise your hand thing. But yes, I'm recovering from hip replacement surgery, And my role at CareNet is changing, and I was a center director and also a new day director, which is help after abortion and other pregnancy losses. We have a pregnancy loss support side of that. So this was just really good to kind of help me put in perspective. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot now. There's the surgery, recovering, changing roles, working from home, all these things that can empty my cup really quickly. But I'm really grateful that God has given this team of women. We have about 10 of us on the New Day team. So I oversee the team, and we are each other's support group, because I think it's so important when you are ministering to clients all the time, and we all have our own losses. And so just to be able to have that support group where you can bring those things that we're struggling with to this group of people that can understand and help us with that. We do studies that help our team members to get rid of some more of the baggage. We're doing the paths of sexual healing right now with Linda Cochran. We're just starting up that study, and several of us have been through it together as a team. So just things that will continually help you to get rid of your own baggage and to continue those layers of healing, and that support from a group, I think is so important to be able to minister well then to our clients.
Absolutely. Well articulated. And I think about your experience, Nancy, you know, you probably did a lot of preparation for your hip surgery, but the real life aftermath looks probably a lot different than what you prepared for. And so to provide space for that and naming that today, I think is really helpful for all of us to hear. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Jeannie, I see your hand up.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be a part of this today, and I was able to listen. And obviously, I think I've lived most of my life with an empty cup trying to give out. I mean, that's just like recognizing at this moment that being a codependent and always feeling like you don't take time for yourself because you have to do. And I think that stopping and acknowledging the fact that it's okay for you to take that time and recognize what it is that you need. I mean, that's like huge, because it's always like, I'm okay, I'm fine, you know, I'm used to this rhythm. And it's almost like you got to be in desperation to where you almost physically, and sometimes that'll happen, where you will get physically sick because you don't recognize, you know, what do you mean I have to slow down? What do you mean I have to get, you know, myself okay? I need to be there for. And for me, the adult daughter of 4 kids, you know, with my mom, I was the one who just had to do. So being in regards to doing recovery and working for the last 15 years, with pregnancy centers, and I've learned, I have definitely taken the time to just slow it down, get my own healing, and also allowing myself to be accountable to others, being transparent, knowing that I need for you to tell me, you know what, Jeannie, you don't look good today, come here. So you know, it's layers after layers after layers when you've been doing this kind of work, to recognize that for me, it's okay for me to slow down and get healed and take the time out. You know, the world's not going to stop because I slow down. So I know I've said a lot, but I'm very grateful for this community, and continue to hope to be a part of it for a long time. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. That was very powerful. I think Jeannie said it best, that healing comes in layers. And so it's not a one and done, it's a journey. So we've never arrived. I think that's a big gift. Thank you for sharing that. Greg, I see your hand up here from a male.
Well, hello there. And hello, everybody. Yeah, you know, it's a funny thing that this work we're all involved in, it's draining. It takes a lot out of you. And then on top of all that, then we have life, right? And sitting here listening to this presentation today, what really hit me is, as my biggest example, you know, in February or April of 20, my father had a stroke, and caring for him for the next 2 years almost was like playing life on defense. I wasn't prepared for it. I was doing this work and then dealing with that, and it was constant reaction, right? You know, he was fine, and then one day he wasn't. Okay. Well, Dad passed in February, and now my mom has cancer. Yesterday, I took her to her first chemo appointment. Now, this is where I talk about being available to the moment, right? And Lisa, you talked about awareness. Driving over to pick Mom up, I acknowledged and got in touch with what I was feeling. I was sad, I was scared, I was a little angry, right? And so acknowledging that and being honest with myself about that, then by the time I arrived at Mom's house, I was able to process what she needed from me today. She needed someone in good spirits to keep her spirits up, somebody that was taking copious notes with the doctors and the nurses. And so I did all those things for her. After getting her home, getting her fed, and leaving, then I allowed myself to feel the emotion I was feeling. And then, and this is, I think, a very important piece of this, I allowed myself to give myself what I needed, which for me is taking a walk by water. In Indianapolis, we have great canals and a river. And so I spent an hour and a half just walking around downtown, breathing, talking to God, allowing myself to just be still for a minute. And so that made a difference. That was kind of the whole package of the day of preparing for it, setting my junk aside for a minute, not ignoring it or denying it, but just setting it aside for a minute so I could be present for my mom and give her what she needed. And then I allowed myself to cry and walk and breathe and talk, if all that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think this is spoken from somebody who's further along in their healing journey. What Greg was able to do is identify on the way there, create that awareness. When he got there, he was able to stay present, but he knew afterwards that he needed to fill that cup back up. And too many of us have taken 2 years, 20 years, right, before we acknowledge that we need to fill that cup back up. And Greg, what a great model, because that's practical. I mean, our days are filled with things that we can expect and things we can't. But to know in that moment you needed space for yourself, that's powerful. And I'm so grateful you would share that.
Hey, can I just say one more thing really quick? Another big thing about that was my wife supported me in that. Mm-hmm. When I walked out my mom's door, I texted her and I said, leaving Mom's, I need to go be downtown for a little bit. And she said, love you, see you soon. And that was huge too, having that acknowledgement and that support from her.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome, because that might be not the same story with somebody else. And that could have been like a codependent response, then they would go home perhaps, but that we still need to stay committed to ourselves to take care. So I appreciate that perspective too, Greg. Thank you. Lisa C., I see your hand up.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, or morning to those of you who may be Central Time or maybe further out west. I do want to say thank you, Lisa, for sharing this today. It is very timely at the beginning of a new year. And, you know, one of the things that God was just pressing upon me is that I have to reposition myself. And that is a constant work every day, is repositioning myself, because how can I anticipate God doing what he does if I don't take step forward? And so one of the things that I recognize and I help clients do is I always tell clients, or I even tell myself, nothing changes until it changes, which means nothing is going to change until we begin to start changing the things that need to change. And so I have to preach that to myself every day, that I do have to take care of myself, because I can't give what I don't have. And oftentimes I don't have it. It's like if you go out to your car and you have no gas, well, where are you going? I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to stay stagnated. And so we have to continue to do it. And one of the things that I put in the chat box I saw this caption that said, self-care is not selfish, because I think oftentimes people will come back at me, well, doesn't the Bible say that we have to esteem others more than ourselves? And I was like, well, Jesus took a time out. Who are we? And so, you know, we're not the master. We're not the teacher. You know, we're not the great I am, right? We're not that. So why do we anticipate that we have to show up and be present for people all the time? And so one of the things that I recognize for myself is that I let it go, because I also recognize that there are things I can control and there are things that I can't. And when I know the difference, then I give up the things that I can't control. So I just love that you're bringing this to the forefront, Lisa, because it's a great way to start off the new year, recognizing that we don't have control over everything, but what we have control over, we control those things. And so thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, Lisa, reposition. And I say this a lot when I think of codependency, and when you're talking about control, it comes to mind. If we can start to see the world as hula hoops, our own hula hoop, and everybody else has their own hula hoop, and we decide today that we are going to stay in our own hula hoop and control what is in our hula hoop, and we give people back their hula hoops and let them take care of what they need to take care of, we would be so much more free.
Well, we would. And I also think we are people pleasers, and we want everybody else to feel okay and feel good, because we know what it feels like on the other side. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change. And people, and we all make choices, just like, you know, God gave us a choice. Either you will or you won't. And so either you're going to serve me or you're not. And so everybody has choices. So people have to decide what they're going to do for themselves. And so I've made a decision, whether it's family, children, friends, colleagues, whoever it is, I've made a conscious decision that I have to do me first. And if you think I'm being selfish, so be it.
You go, girl. Thank you for sharing. All right. I'm going to take one more comment, and that's from Miss Jess. You'll take yourself off mute.
Is that me, Jess?
That is you, Jess. Okay. Welcome.
This is so wonderful. I just absolutely can love seeing so many people, and we're all kind of doing the same work. That's just wonderful. So I've been involved in post-abortion ministry for 12 years. I'm currently an associate pastor, and then my church supports the post-abortion ministry, which has just been amazing. I was with the Pregnancy Resource Center for a long time, but it just worked out better to move out from underneath that umbrella. So I just say all that because I'm in ministry full time. And so being in ministry full time and doing post-abortion ministry, especially in the last 2 years, I work for a pretty amazing person who has made it really important for us to focus on self-care. And he didn't care what it was. He just wanted to know, what does it look like? What does your time with Jesus look like? How are you caring for your bodies? How are you, taking care of yourselves? And so I just wanted to share that I'm someone who wants to do things perfectly, and I want like things to be done quickly, but I've learned that that's not really like how it works. And so I started really at the beginning of 2022, just deciding that I was going to get up earlier than I wanted and spend time with the Lord. And I do actually enjoy exercising, so that wasn't hard to commit to, but I did that and just kind of had this set regimen. And it's just been so interesting walking into this year after committing to that for a whole year, which has been really hard for me. Now I'll say I'm in a season where I don't have small children anymore. So anyone hearing me saying, I wish I could do that with small children, I could not do that with small children. I swear I'd have a plan and then I'd wake up and 2 of the 3 would be sick, or, my whole day would be off the rails. So I am in a season where my mornings are way more predictable, but having that consistency, and even though sometimes in the morning I didn't necessarily have a plan, I just opened the Word of God, prayed, journaled, wrote things down. It really has paid off over the year. And then I wanted to just say that I really needed to talk to someone. I'm in a season where my boys are older. And so it's a really hard season for me personally, like them getting older and our lives changing so much. And so I was really sad, and I needed to talk to someone about what that was going to look like when they were all gone. And so I just want to advocate, like, I really benefited so greatly from a counselor. I still have one that I go to for maintenance every couple months. And actually my employer pays for my spouse and I to go 3 times a year. And then we can see them more if we want to. So I just wanted to share that, it's been a slow process, but I'm walking into 2023 actually for once feeling like my cup is full. I have good practices in place. I'm just starting a Bible study that personally, I have a group for single moms at my church. Because I feel like that's a part of my ministry, right? They did what we've asked them to do, so now I need to support them. But anyway, so we're committed to this really deep dive Bible study for the next 6 months, and I'm just so excited to do that on top of still leading groups. And I feel like I always get something out of those groups, right? Every time I'm healed more or something, even though I've been doing it for 12 years, I can't believe it. So God is just so good. So anyway, I just wanted to share that and say thank you to you and your organization. My team is so excited. We're going to start partnering and offering Keys to Hope and Healing. And we're just so excited for what you guys are doing, what you all the work that you're putting in, and just this community that you're creating. It really is, because you can feel alone being in this type of ministry because so spread out. And so it's just so neat to have this, to look through this Zoom and go, oh my word, look at all the people here, and see some of your faces and be like, hi, we're doing the same thing. Awesome. And I start on Friday. I have a gal who's trying to not come. Pray for her. Like, you can do this. Come, don't back out. So anyways, thank you for listening. That's all.
Oh, you're so awesome, Jess. I think all of us would say we want some of that energy. Good job filling your cup. What a beautiful gift. Thank you. All right. So Kylie's going to pop back on. There was a question. This chat is just blowing up today. I'm so grateful. Thank you for those that chose to share. It's always helpful to see another face on the side of the screen that says, oh yeah, I'm not alone in this journey. So I do hope that those vulnerable, conversations we just had will bless you. Thank you for those that did share. And Kylie, where are you? There you are. Shoot me with the questions.
Presto changeo. So we're really excited because we have people in this Zoom live right now. We also have a whole group of people watching on Facebook. And on Facebook, a conversation that was happening was my organization's management didn't allow for self-care to be part of our work environment. How do we catch up while still maintaining our workload?
That's a great question. Work culture is super important. And if we're going to talk about hula hoops like we did before, there are certain things you can control and certain things you can't control. And if you have a corporate culture that does not support self-care and isn't open to hearing from it, you have a couple choices. And, these are things that land in your hula hoop. You have a choice to choose to accept the culture and choose to take care of yourself in ways outside of that culture. You have a choice to leave, or you have a choice to feel stuck in it. And so, it really depends on the circumstances. But I would say that anybody that's a leader here, corporate culture, work culture is huge. And it really does, it's all about retention when you have a healthy culture. It's all about performance when you have a healthy culture. And if those things aren't in existence, I'd like you to get aware of it. And how are you going to protect yourself in that environment?
That's great, Lisa. I love that we have job opportunities being posted in our chat right now. Thank you, Maria. That's amazing. So please look into that if you're looking for a job. What a perfect segue to Lisa's comments. Next question is, what is shared baggage syndrome and how do I address it within my life?
Oh, shared baggage syndrome. I've never heard of that before. I'm assuming that you're sharing baggage with somebody that has it. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I thought I was going to press a button for codependency 101 here, but it did sound in the way that the question was conveyed that it is difficult to hear about how other people are hurting, and it becomes part of this person's baggage that they carry. So.
Okay. So that goes back to the very beginning of our conversation. What is your purpose? Why do you serve? And if there is a personal element to it, have you walked through your own healing journey? Are you walking through your healing journey? We cannot fix another person. We can walk alongside of their journey. We can help them if they want help, but it is not our job to carry things that they're unwilling to carry. And so oftentimes one of the biggest things that I ask people that are struggling with this is, what is your motivation when you go to help somebody? Are you doing it because you don't want them to hurt? Are you doing it because you can see yourself in their pain? Are you doing it because you feel guilt and shame because you might have had something to do with their story? All of those things are impure motives. We are not God. We can't solve people's problems. We were gifted with things to help us help other people, but it's their job to carry their responsibilities. I heard a sermon one time where this was said so much better than I just said. In the Bible, God says, help carry other people's burdens. And this gentleman that was sharing in the sermon said, that's like when I needed help carrying my grand piano to the basement. I needed to call my 4 friends to carry it down the stairs. That's a burden. I could not do that by myself. It was a one-time event, a one-part season, right? But when I went to go mow my lawn the next day, that's a regular everyday or every weekly occurrence that is not their burden to carry. If I would have called those 4 men to come help me mow the lawn the next day, that is not their responsibility. And so we can sometimes enable people, if those 4 men would have come back to mow the lawn, right, that will come every single time you call, and then that person doesn't own their own life and their own experiences. So perhaps that might help you understand that we are called to help carry burdens, but everyday experiences are not burdens.
2 questions, 3 minutes, Lisa.
Great.
What are 3 tips for identifying empty cups across my team?
Oh gosh, tired. That would be my first thing. Irritability, sometimes gossip, tardiness to work. I'm going to name more than these things that I've seen in my team members. Complaints from clients about them, a distractibility that you haven't seen before, maybe they're late getting their work done, inconsistencies that you haven't seen in the past, just changes in behavior all the way around is what I would say to look for.
Thank you. We also have some chat comments of melancholy and dread to go to work. Last question is, can you share who is invited to the clinical provider webinars and how they differ from this webinar that we're in right now?
That's great. So we offer clinical webinars. In fact, we had one yesterday, very similar platform, except my co-leader, Greg Hassick, who's also a licensed mental health counselor, shares the time with me. We invite a topic. Yesterday was the impact of abortion in marriage. We shared a story from a man and a woman who experienced abortion and then chose to get married and how it's impacted them. And then we dissect it from a clinical perspective, how we might help in the therapeutic environment. We don't talk about this a lot in our therapeutic world of reproductive loss, but specifically abortion. Next month, it'll be, I believe, February 21st, but we'll put that in the chat. And we're going to talk about parenting amidst abortion. So parents who have living children and have a previous abortion or choose abortion in the midst of parenting living children, what are the impacts and what are the implications and what can we do as clinicians to serve them well and help support those clients? So without further ado, it's almost 1 o'clock. I want to thank you so much for coming, being so brave and sharing and talking. And I really hope that this was one deposit into your cup today. We have moved all of our meetings moving forward to noon. I believe they're going to share the link in the chat for you. So we will see you next month and continue to build this community so that you don't feel, like Jess said, that you're alone. There are more people doing what you do than you realize. And this is a space for you to connect and grow and nourish your healing ministries. So thanks for joining me today. And I look forward to our next meeting. Have a blessed day.